Welcome to this iOS open source kickoff event. I'm Devanshi, working as an iOS engineer since a few years and have been a member of the Swift contributor experience group and have been working as an evangelist for Women Who Code Mobile for a couple of years. Uh, we have Claudia as well, who is an iOS engineer at Jack Henry and Associates. She has two teenage sons in high school, and in her spare time, she likes to fly planes and crochet as well. We both will be the project maintainers for this repository. Yeah. And we have Cecelia, who is a project manager for this, and she's a lead advocate at Art Systems. She has been doing volunteering for several organizations, including Women Who Code Mobile, and is a previous GitHub star. We have Wei, who is a software engineer with over 20 years of experience. She has been a native iOS developer since 2016 and is now learning Android development as well. Wei is a leadership fellow for the Women Who Code Mobile Track and will be a floating maintainer for our project. Yeah, so let's go over through the agenda. We'll be building our skills for iOS development. We'll be able to connect and grow together. And then we'll be unveiling the our task tracker application. We'll go through the wireframes and see how we bring the app to life. Cecelia will go over through the project setup on GitHub and how the version, how to navigate through the version control and how we all can start contributing. Cecelia will then go through the open source workflow, she will go through the basic steps, how we can start collaborating along with the community, and what are the various other ways that you can contribute other than coding as well. And in the last, we'll be sharing the coding resources that will develop to build your skills more, and will and go through the next steps as well. Yeah. So this is a open source project initiative. We are doing it for the first time for the Women Who Code Mobile Track, and what we basically will learn from it would be the collaborative experience, how we all together can contribute and make an application from scratch with the power of community. What will we get is we will be able to enhance our skills, grow our network, and we all will be able to learn from each other as not everyone knows everything, right? So we'll be able to learn together and make our project alive. Yeah. So over to Cecelia. Sorry, Claudia.
Yeah, so I want to talk a little bit about what we will be building. And like Devanshi said, we will be building a task tracker app. And for this time around, we'll be working on just the MVP version of it with 3 simple flows: the add flow, the details edit flow, and then the delete flow. And so let's go through each of those a little bit more into details. We're starting with the add flow. So this is a just a very rough sketch of the add flow. And if you can see, when you come into the app, the first thing you'll see is a list of any tasks if you have already built them. But then you'll also be able to create them either from the top right, from the plus, or down below what looks kind of like a play button. Now, just keep in mind that these are sketches. It doesn't have to look exactly 100% like this. We do have, the freedom to change it up a little bit, not too much though. Uh, but then once you create a task, then we can go into um, the we'll just call it details because that's what it is, the details screen, and be able to add the date from a calendar picker, the time from a scroll view, and then save it. Um, and then the next flow is the edit, details edit flow. And in this one, similar to when we added it, we can go in and change the date, the time, the start time, the end time. The only difference here from when we first added it is if the user uh, cancels out of it without saving their changes, there will be an alert that lets them know, hey, you didn't save this. You sure? Okay, or cancel. And then you see the garbage can icon on the top right. So this will take us to our last flow, which is the delete flow. So from here, it's just another pop-up that says, hey, you sure you want to delete? Um, User says okay, then it's gone from the flow. So it seems pretty simple, but there's a lot going on. Um, can keep us busy for a while. Um, so uh, this is the project setup on GitHub. Please read the README on it because unlike most GitHub projects, it is a little bit different in that you have to fork the repo, the whole entire Women Who Code mobile repo, because it's just the way it's set up. It's a little bit different. So please do read the README. If you have any questions, feel free to ask any of us, and we will uh, answer your questions, walk you through it if that's what you need. But once you get the flow of it, it's pretty easy. Um, and then once you fork it, get it on your computer, then you can start, working on it. Yeah, go ahead, Devanshi. And the project itself, we decided to split it up by the different screens. And we are going to be doing this in Swift UI. We said, let's try to use the latest of Apple's technologies. And Swift UI lends itself to the MVVM architecture, the model view model pattern. If you haven't used it, it's pretty easy, but there's lots of articles out there to kind of get you started. So each folder has a model, a view, and a view model file associated with it. You can go ahead and make changes to those. But Cecelia will talk more about that in a little bit.
All right. I can take over here. I'm Cecelia. So I'm going to talk about the actual process of contributing to the repository. So I am the project manager for this project, meaning that I am helping to create issues, address any questions that may come up, and as working as a floating maintainer to kind of review questions on issues, but I am not an iOS engineer, so I will not be doing code reviews, but helping how I can given my background in open source. So this is the open source workflow I'm going to go through it. However, keep in mind that these slides will be made available for you. And we also do have additional resources in the GitHub repository with screenshots and video of how to do all of this. So don't feel like you have to memorize all of it right now. But the first thing that you'll want to do is review the contributing guide, which is in the README for the project. So in that README, it'll include types of contributions that you can make. It'll include how to install the application and everything that you kind of need to know to get started. Then you're going to find an issue to work on. We are using GitHub issues to track all of the issues related to this project. They're all tagged with project-iOS. So we do have an Android and an iOS project happening in this repository. So you'll want to make sure that you're looking for those project iOS tags. Whenever you find an issue that you would like to work on, you will then comment on that GitHub issue, tagging the maintainer. So tagging either Devanshi or Claudia to say, hey, I'd like to work on this issue. I also ask you to tag the maintainer, again, Devanshi or Claudia, in the open source and personal projects channel in Slack to let them know that you'd like to claim that issue. We do ask that you wait for the maintainer to assign the issue to you before you start working on it, just to make sure that there's nothing blocking that issue or that nobody else has already claimed it before you start putting effort into it. So once you have been assigned the issue in GitHub, you can feel free to get started working on it. The next step is to actually work on your contribution. So this is more of a kind of a technical process. This will involve forking the repo. So you will need to fork, as Claudia is mentioning, the entire repo. But you're going to be working within the coding project /iOS directory. You're going to then clone the repo to your machine locally, so that way you can create a new branch. I recommend naming the branch something helpful and semantic. The issue number is always a great idea if you want to name your branch that, or you can name it something descriptive about what you're working on. But you definitely want to create a new branch to work on off of that fork. You'll then make your code changes and you'll commit them. Again, a helpful commit message is always a good idea. And you'll push those changes up to your remote fork branch. We do ask that you create a draft PR within 3 days, just so we know that you're still working on it. Now, if you have any questions or if you become blocked, then just make a comment so that we know that that's what's going on and we can help you overcome those blockages. But because we have a lot of people that will be working on this and moving quickly, we do ask that you are kind of working on it within that 3 days. If you do have any questions or once your PR is ready for review, again, tag the maintainer on the pull request and then also in Slack. We also ask that in the pull request that you include the issue number that you're working on. That way it'll link back to that issue for us to easily be able to track that and update it. So we'll go ahead and go to the next slide. So a couple of more process things now to cover. Once you create your pull request to the original repository and you have tagged the maintainers, you can expect that the code will be reviewed by the maintainer within 3 days. You should respond to any changes or make requested changes or any follow-up questions from the maintainers within 24 hours. Once the initial approval is complete, then a second maintainer will review and then go ahead and approve and merge that pull request. And then you get to celebrate because you have made an open source contribution, and you'll definitely see some of that in the channel, some celebrating and some finished PRs. We do ask that, we do want to let you know that if there's no activity on the issue within 5 days, so 5 days of radio silence, no questions, no comments, no, hey, I'm working on it, just run behind, then we will reassign that issue to somebody else so that it won't block other work. As I mentioned, I know we just covered a lot. And if you have never gone through the process or if you need a refresher on how to fork, clone, create a branch, all of that, in the coding project /resources folder, there are slides with screenshots that walk through all of that, as well as a video recording of me walking through that process live. So you can reference that. And then, of course, if you have any questions or issues, that's why we're in the Slack channel. Please let us know. We're happy to help. So on the next slide, we'll talk a little bit more about the types of ways that you can contribute. So everything that I kind of mentioned and we've been talking about so far has been code, right? And I think a lot of you here probably will be most interested in doing code contributions because you want to gain experience and develop that way. But there's a lot of different ways that you can contribute to the project that would be really helpful for us. So feature coding is obviously going to be what primarily the GitHub issues that we have so far are. But if you identify any bugs and anything that has been merged, you can create issues or work on those there. Writing tests is a big one. If you see an area that could use additional test coverage, that's really helpful. Documentation. So if you identify areas where we could use more documentation in the repository, whether that be in the contributing guide, in the README, or anything that would help, move the project along, that's another great way to contribute. You can also create issues. So not everybody knows this, but in your GitHub settings, you can actually set it up to where creating issues counts as contributions on your green squares chart. So I think it might be by default, but you can check if it's not working for you. But creating issues is actually really helpful for us and me as a project manager because it lets me know what needs to be worked on or if we missed something or if it makes sense to make something there is like a new feature request. And wireframes for new features are also really helpful. A lot of work went into these wireframes that we have made so far. And so if there are new screens or new flows that we want to add, contributing in a design aspect is also really helpful. If you have any other ideas, you can always create a GitHub issue. That's what they're for. GitHub issues are about starting a conversation and submitting ideas. And then just make sure to, tag a maintainer so that we can review that. We did try to break up the GitHub issues so that they won't be too much at one time for any one person and so that multiple people can contribute. But if you do see an issue and you think it's too big or you need assistance, again, comment or let us know. We do recommend that you start with one of our beginner issues. And so on the next slide, I think that's covered. I can talk a little bit more about that. All right. So the maintainers have very helpfully created issues that are a good first issue. So this means that if you are not as familiar with contributing to open source or just want to kind of get your feet wet, so to speak, all these issues that are marked with beginner and then have the tag good first issue is a great place to start. And we definitely recommend doing that so you get some practice of going through the process of changing the code, making a pull request, and submitting it and getting it approved. The nice thing is that all of these issues also correspond to a to-do in the code base. So you can see in the screenshot here, they have, to-do add about us row, and it has the issue number, so number 109. So that lets you know where you would want to go in and make that change to correspond to that issue. So there's quite a few of these. I definitely recommend claiming one of these first, like I said, to get used to the code base and to get used to the process. So take a look at those before you kind of dig into some of the other issues that are related to the UI and the logic of the app. All right, and I'll pass it back over.
Yeah, thank you so much, Cecelia, for going through the process. So here are some of the coding resources available online if you are just starting out or want to learn more. These are all free resources you can find on. Hacking with Swift is one of the most popular courses. Whoever wants to learn the Swift UI or Swift, there are many tutorials available. There is a section for 100 days of Swift UI where you'll be guided through the process and the practice. There is the official Apple documentation available for Swift UI. They also have the tutorials. And there are other resources such as the Stanford class for Swift and Sean Allen Swift UI fundamentals on YouTube as well. And these are not the only ones. There are many others available as well. But you can, if you are starting out, we would recommend to go through these ones and start. Yeah. And So for next month, we'll also meet sharing our accomplishments, what has been done on the app so far. Also, the date would be February 29 at 7:30 p.m. Eastern Time. So we'll be sharing our progress, our accomplishments. Also, we'll recognize the individuals who have been contributing. We'll see the progress of the app and see what more can be added in the added further in the coming months. Yeah. And please make sure you join the Women Who Code Mobile Track on Slack and the open source and personal projects channel as well, where we will be communicating throughout this month for any queries and the updates. Uh, so please feel free to ask any questions or feedback if you have any.
All right, amazing job, Devanshi, Claudia, and Cecelia on the presentation. Thank you so much. So before we start answering questions, I want to give a shout out to, first of all, Cecelia and Devanshi for teaching an open source workshop last year. That was really helpful to help lay the groundwork for the open source projects that we're embarking on now. And Cecelia for creating the GitHub project and managing these open source projects. Thank you so much. And want to give a shout out to Claudia for creating all those beginner issues for the project, which is going to help a lot of people get involved in the project. So thank you so much. So let's see, Lulu had the question, how long does this project last? So I'll answer that question. We're going to have a status event in a month, like Devanshi just mentioned. And then from there, we'll determine based on interest from the community if we're going to do another month after that. So if all goes well, I'm hoping maybe through, I guess through March to work on the MVP. And then April, I think we're going to take a month break just to give maintainers a chance to kind of rest and, you know, and see if we need to swap out folks on the team, give some people a break, maybe bring on some new maintainers. And if there's continued interest, we may continue for another couple months for phase 2 after that. So I hope that answers your question. You have any other questions? Let's go look through the chat here.
I would also recommend everyone go and hop into the open source and personal projects channel in Slack and say hi. So that way we can start to get to know you, and that way we can put a Slack name to a GitHub username once you start looking at issues.
Okay, and Lulu also asked, this is a great question. You tag maintainers in GitHub and or in Slack. Right now, I would recommend that you do both. If you have an interest in working on an issue, to comment in the issue in GitHub and tag the maintainer, and then also tag the maintainer in Slack. It would be nice if we can get the GitHub app integrated into our Slack, but unfortunately, we don't have that option, so it's best to just kind of write a message in both places. So sorry for that inconvenience for now. All right, well, we'll give folks a minute or two if there's any more questions. But yeah, thank you everyone for joining the event tonight, or actually I don't know, I guess we're all at different times today, whatever time it is for you right now. We're all really excited you came to our launch, and I hope you all will get involved in the project.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you so much. See you in the Slack.
Cheers.
All right. Thank you, everyone. Hope to see you all soon. See you on GitHub and Slack. All right. Thanks, team, for a great presentation.